How's it, Van? How you doing, man?
Very well, thanks, Paul. Good to see you, Ben.
It's been a minute, huh? When's the last time I
Sure.
saw you?
Can't even remember. I think it
Before
was
COVID.
probably a dad's funeral, I think, eh? Not sure when that was.
Yeah. Jeez. Anyway, I will have to catch up next time I'm over.
Sounds good.
Thanks for doing this. This is the sort of second channel, I guess, which is a grandiose term for the first episode. So there's been a few people who've said, yeah, we're interested in hearing recollections and of our college experience, but we're also, it would be interesting to hear, which I was going to do anyway, which was what people's careers after school.
Yes.
And there's probably a demographic of people who probably don't have an interest because of their experience at school, but are interested in what happens afterwards. And so, introducing ourselves, first of all, I haven't said I'm in the UK and you're in Joburg. We were in the same year, so that's probably why you agreed for pushing it a open door, which I appreciate. So just very briefly about your time at St. John's. You were there for the college only,
Yes. Yeah.
and you've got quite an extensive family connection to the college.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, all the girls in our family, from my grandmother to mother to sister, went to Rodin. So all my aunts and cousins and the whole lot, they went to Rodin, and then the male side of the family came to St. John's. So that started with the Walters family, which started with the fathers of Kevin, Barry, and I've forgotten the other father, and then their kids, Charles, and all the other cousins. They all came then to St. John's after that. Darren and Craig, the whole lot, Justin. They then came to St. John's. So it was basically just the girls went to Rodin, the boys went to St. John's. So it was a kind of a family thing. I didn't know the school existed until I actually came to the school. So that was my first
Is that, when
introduction.
did you move? You moved to South Africa when you were what?
Yes,
Because
I
you
was.
were born in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I was 9. So I say technically I was born in Rhodesia because I did a name change in 1980. So I left Zimbabwe in 1980, came to the country 9 years old.
And which school did you go for prep?
So I went to Rivonia Primary School, which was a really, really cool school at the time. There I met Andrew McGough, who then joined me at St. John's, and met some really nice people there at Rivonia. Nice people, yeah.
That's cool. So yeah, we don't want to touch too much on the college time. Uh, which house were you in? Were you Clark?
Now I was in Alston, so the yellow one, yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool. And overall, your experience of St. John's. I mean, sometimes it's hard to get a gauge because some people walked out of St. John's and never looked back. Other times, people, even though they may have had different experiences, they still retained a link. And you've done that. I mean, yeah, we're
Yeah,
still friends.
yeah.
I know that you've got other mates. You've done some business with some old boys. So just overall, what are your memories and what are your feelings?
Yeah, look, I mean, it was a big culture shock for me. I mean, I came from this very, so Zim is a very small country. I stayed in Salisbury, now Harare, which was really, really small. Then came to Johannesburg, which was this big city, and yet went to Rivonia Primary, which was kind of small enough. Then you come to Johannesburg city and you go to St. John's College, which is now this whole huge leap in consciousness. So I was first a little bit overwhelmed. We did a IQ testing when we arrived. So they then put you in the streams according to that. And they put me in the B stream. And I didn't know I had undiagnosed ADHD. So I didn't realize I couldn't learn the way that they taught you, which is like here's the lesson, here's the books you study, and that's it. I had an attention deficit disorder, so I had to sit in the very front of the class in the middle. Otherwise, I got distracted. And the only way I got through is from what I remembered in the class, because I couldn't open a book and study afterwards. And the challenge there is that my grades just kept on going down and down and down because they didn't have an understanding at that time of how to teach kids who've got ADHD. So that then hit. self-confidence and that sort of stuff. You really, really start to have a very low opinion of yourself as your grades just continually plummet. So that was very challenging for me, but I really loved the school. I liked the grounds were pretty. I wanted to study architecture at one time, so I really appreciated the architecture. I liked the grounds. I really enjoyed the people I was in friends with. So yeah, I had a very positive recollection of St. John's as a whole. No ill feelings or bad experiences at all. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we spoke about when I did the other podcast with Mac and Pete, um, that times have changed. We were taught, according to probably the last or second last generation, where it was a very limited teaching structure. And I was the same. I did very well in primary school. I was top, second, third top of the school that I was at. But then I had my behavioral issues at the college, which was fed into the fact that I was only diagnosed with ADHD about 3 years ago. And I struggled to study. And then I became combative. The school was combative back, and it was just not an ideal scenario. From what I've heard, and I'd like to chat with some of the former teachers and college students from this century about their experiences, and I'm sure that they're going to be quite different. But you share a little bit about your life in Zimbabwe, which um, it's amazing. And the reason why I wanted to do this podcast is we leave St. John's, and so those of us who want to stay part of it, um, we get involved with Old Boys Club and the Old Jahanians. But you're still quite limited in who you're experienced to and who you meet and learn about. And everybody's got these. Yours is a really cool backstory, and also the things that you've done in your career is really interesting. But you don't hear about it unless it's somebody who's a close mate. So this is a way for us to share that. Um, yeah, tell us about some of those trips that you'd go with your father on when he was part of the British South Africa Police.
Yeah, so that's just a little bit of a backstory. So there was a policing organization called the BSAP, British South African Police, and that was very much British kind of way of doing things. They had swords and lances, and it was they wore these shiny leather leggings and spats and all that sort of stuff. So it was very, very British the way it was done, and the ranks and everything were like that. And my father was an instructor in the BSAP. And if you were part of the policing, you would also do there was a bush war going on at the time, and you would then do a call up where you would then dress in your camos and go into the bush with a rifle and go and take on some terrorists. And he then, when he left the police, he did insurance loss adjusting for the government, where they would assess war losses. So say your farm was attacked, you could then apply for war losses. And so he would then go out to the farm, and he would then assess livestock losses, barn being burnt down, all the different things, and you could then be compensated for that. And when I was 8 years old, so diving back from that, as part of the roles that he played, he was then allocated an FNFAL, which is a 7.62 rifle. In South Africa, we called it the R. And this was, 20 round, very nice rifle. And then he also had what they called a GM16, which is an Uzi, a 9mm Uzi, and, pistol, and eventually some hand grenades and stuff like that. So we would be trained at home how to shoot the FN and the Uzi. And so we were familiar with the things because we were the last house on the edge of town. So if there was going to be a rev on the civilian things, we were kind of close to that. So we were taught like where to go in the passage because there's no glass and all that sort of stuff. So we'd run drills if there was an attack. Anyway, so he then would come and get a knock on the door, and the headmaster would say, "Your father's here." And I'm like, "All right, fine." Go outside, and he's come. We're going on a trip, like totally random, unplanned. Boom, out of school, he's got a bag of clothes for me and just change. And then he had a pilot's license, PPL, private pilot's license. And we'd then jump in a light plane, fly off to some random farm that had just been read by tours, and he would then do an assessment. The thing that became difficult for me is he would carry the FN and I'd carry the Uzi. So I was trained with the Uzi, and I was then the 8-year-old with an Uzi. I was good. I was a good shot with it. And when you're traveling on the farm roads, you know you're in a hot zone. It's just been revved by tours. Every time there's a scuff in the road, you'd kind of tense just in case it was a landmine. Then you arrive at the farm and there's like pock marks on the walls and there's dead cattle and it's a whole bunch of things, which was cool for me as a kid. I thought these were wild experiences, obviously quite challenging to process. You'd see some vehicles that had been hit by landmines and that sort of a thing. But I didn't realize it affected me psychologically until I went into the military. And in the military, I started to have something called night terrors, where I would think I was being crushed by a tank, and I'd like scream, no, wait, wait, wait. And then I'd wake up and I'm crawling across my bed in the tent and shouting. And so these things happened. And eventually, when I did police
They call
service,
that PTSD, wouldn't they?
yeah, and then in the police, it eventually got worse and worse and worse. And after 7 years, it was really bad. And they then said, look, you've got undiagnosed PTSD. So that was a kind of an interesting thing, that it's in your psyche. But when you go back into those combat kind of scenarios, it then starts to present itself, which was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, you talked about your military. Now, you weren't a volunteer, that was a conscription at the time.
I volunteered.
Did you? Oh, did you? Ah, interesting. You went straight after school.
So basically, I applied for graphic design at the Durban Tech. I wanted to do the only course that could teach you airbrushing was graphic design. So I enjoyed airbrushing and wanted to do that. So I applied at the Tech. I qualified. Then we did a shortlist, and then we did another thing. But I didn't make the shortlist. This was already, I think, in February or something. So by then it was too late to get into another course. And I thought, look, I've got to get this military thing done. I don't want to start something and then I'm, going to be called up for it. And I hadn't had conscription papers, although I was a South African citizen, because I was an immigrant. So I thought, no, screw it. Let me go and get this done. The very cool thing is Andrew McGough, my mate, he said, cool, I'll go with you. So we travel through to Pretoria. We go through to the office where they appoint you to the different things. And they said, look, you can do guard duty at the Air Force Base, or you can go to one special service battalion in Broom. And I thought, screw it, I'm here, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to stand guard duty. Let's go do the big thing. One special service battalion sounds like that's legit. So he changed his call up to mine. And we then arrived at one special service battalion, met George Rennie there and a couple of other SJ boys. And yeah, it was actually quite cool. Yeah, arrived there at one special service battalion. They then do a care out where you can do selection. And they had, do you want to do parabats? Do you want to do infantry? Do you want to do mechanized infantry? Do you want to do one special service battalion, which is basically armor? Or do you want to do tanks and go up to School of Armor? I saw this thing with tracks and this huge barrel, and I thought, now that's the ship. That's what I want to do. So I volunteered then to do School of Armor and went up and did tanks there, and that was the shit. I really, really enjoyed that. Had great fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a complicated period in our history, but it was an obligation, which effectively you knew you would have to do it sometimes, so you just figured the pun, bit the bullet and went and did it. So I got called up to Bloem, but then got a deferment for university for infantry. So I was just going to be a grunt in there.
One special service battalion, you would have had a good time.
Yeah, probably. But it ended up, by the time I graduated, it was over.
Once yeah.
And there have been times where I regret that I didn't, because I think I was a bit directionless for a time, and most of the people that I know have spoken to, they didn't necessarily appreciate the causes behind it, but they found it quite good for their own personal growth.
I mean, the fact is, I grew up around military. My father, when I was a young child, we used to see the police parading and they had rifles, and we were surrounded by military. And I used to, when we were going to go and do a call out to the farms, we'd check in at the military base, and there'd be, it was wild stuff. I mean, like very, very cool stuff. So I was surrounded by military. I was trained in military firearms and stuff. So when the time came to do military stuff, I was like, shit, this is where I want to be. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed soldiering. Uh, yeah. So that was me. Yeah.
So looking at what I know about you, I went onto LinkedIn, had a look there. There's two definite themes to your life. The one is military, police, service, but also wildlife and the photography and videography thereof. Are there overlaps, or are they just two distinct passions that you have? Because
Yeah.
because you also became a reservist, a police reservist, and then you also became, still are, the chairman of the Midrand Crime Police. What's it called?
Community Police Forum.
Community Police Forum. That's it. And you've done that so it's a 5-year non-paid volunteer position, which you've done like 2 terms now
Yeah.
as the
Two
chair.
two full terms. I'm in the third year.
Yeah. So that's definitely a passion, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's law and order, it's protecting the community, and then you also got the wildlife passion as well. Is there a connection, or is that just
No, sadly. So, I mean, when I was a kid in Zim, basically, I'd come home from school, get out of my uniform, I'd jump the fence. We were the last house, as I said, on the edge of Salisbury. And then I'd go into the flay and I'd like find flowers and skulls and things. And so I just loved being in wildlife. Came to South Africa. I'd then go and explore the veld nearby, and now live in Kyalami. And we've got just velds around us, and we have francolin and mongoose and hedgehogs and all sorts of stuff. And we've got a conservancy that's created here, and I run the biodiversity section, vice chair there as well. And it's just, I love wildlife, and it's the whole thing. So it's not just big mammals, which everybody seems to prefer. I love the fungus and the insects and the plants, and the whole thing is just excites me and enthralls me. And the part of my role in biodiversity is to educate people. So I take them on veld walks, and we identify plants and different kinds of flowers. And if there's birds, we identify birds or insects or whatever it is. So it's just to give people an appreciation and respect for nature. If you love it, you'll protect it. And so it's just a way that I can communicate to people how pretty and how awesome wildlife is. And I'm now a photographer, videographer. So I use my photography a lot to try and make things look as pretty as they can. I see things as gorgeous. And so I try and convey that beauty to other people so that they can appreciate it as well. So we do a calendar every year, and then so wildlife is, it's a huge passion of mine. And then we do documentaries to try and bring awareness as well. We've done 3 documentaries on leopard conservation, which we should be releasing quite soon. And unfortunately, the policing side never actually meets that. So they're 2 different parts of myself. So I was a police reservist for 7 years, really enjoyed that, and eventually sort of trained guys and that sort of a thing. Sadly, that was when the PTSD reached its height, and I had to resign due to the negative impact of it. Eventually saw a psychologist and got that sorted out, but then joined the Community Police Forum, which is, I don't wear a uniform and I don't drive a car with blue lights and I don't do paperwork, but we still get to, which was better. But I still do, we put on the bulletproof vest, we get the guns, we do raids. So it's still the fun and rush of it, but without the paperwork and that sort of it.
you work in conjunction on the essay?
Yes, so it's a partnership. So basically what happens is I as a civilian have no rights to do stop and seizure, breaching of houses, that sort of a thing. But when we're with the SAPS have it within their constitution, not constitution, under their orders that they can mandate any male between the ages of, I think it's 18 and 60 or 18 and 55 or something, to
Almost deputise.
assist them in affecting their function. And so we work together on roadblocks, and we work together on raids, we work together on operations, whatever it is. And then we are then just what we call a force multiplier, where we then are deputized in that role while we're with them. The second they're gone, that all falls away. So it's only when they're with us or we're with them. Yeah.
So you've done this for over 10 years, plus you did your 7 years reservist. What have you seen overall as like a macro picture of the crime picture in the Gauteng? Has it changed? Is it the same? Is it better?
It changes. So I work very closely with a guy who is now one of the managers at Tracker, and I used to ride along with him, and we'd do response, vehicle recovery and that sort of a thing. And so I've got a lot of data in terms of vehicles, how they take them, where they take them, and that sort of a thing. Crime goes through waves, crimes goes through spikes, and the guys get criminals adapt to policing. So sure. Crime will increase simply because of the cost of living rising. More people will be desperate. So you'll see more petty crimes coming in certain areas. However, we're adapting to that. So in our community, we're having more camera surveillance. We've got more road closures. So as they call it, more gated communities. We've got more ways of controlling access, but through the cameras monitoring access. So a lot of our areas are covered by cameras which have triggers. And so then as soon as that trigger happens, we've got all our security companies and ourselves, CPF, together with SAPs. And so we respond a lot quicker, and we affect a lot more arrests. So as crime increases, we're also mapping more efficient ways to actually address that. So our area, we've got 5 sectors in Midrand, and our area currently has the lowest crime out of all the sectors, and we border right on Diepswit, and we border right on the Leeuwenhoek. Arguably, we're as at risk as some of our other areas that border on Tembisa and Rabi Ridge, etc. But because of the relationships we have with security, and because of the ring fencing with camera networks, we've brought our crime down dramatically. So it'll be reliant upon communities safeguarding themselves, securing themselves. That's where it's going to react. We just don't have the policing force at all.
What was COVID like?
Fantastic.
Crime go down.
Crime was nothing, brother. You couldn't be on the street. So no one was allowed out. You couldn't loiter or nothing. It was the best time ever for policing. Bam. It wasn't like a gradual drop. It just bam straight down. We rued the day that remember you had a curfew. When that curfew dropped away, that was awful. It was just tougher on us to actually police.
A lot of pent-up demand for criminal activity, I remember.
It didn't come back in a sharp spike at all because there were still certain restrictions, etc. But yeah, so to add a gradual increase, not a sharp increase at all.
I was talking to a policeman over here in the UK, and he was saying that crime goes down when it rains. I mean, it rains all the time here, but he said, yeah, if it's a heavy rain, we'll know that the crime will dip, because apparently criminals don't like bad weather, just like the rest of us. So, yeah, I found that interesting.
I think he needs to come to South Africa. We're built a little differently. Yeah, we don't have the guys getting stressed by things. I mean, I chased a guy. I can't even remember what the reason was that he ran. He ran over one of those razor wire fences, and I thought, I'm not going to lose this guy. So I then ran over the razor wire fence. I just got a couple of punctures, and that's it. So it's like, it's a different world out here. We're different, so it's a very different world. They've got far more organized crime than we have, so they've got to be a lot smarter with their tech, etc. But yeah, it's different.
So I wanted to, talk to you about this problem that you've got.
One,
I'm friends with Anton on Facebook, and the pictures that he talks about that he publishes, I look at them and they're stunning photos. But we need to talk about this predilection and this Canon addiction that you got. Now, if Canon went out of business tomorrow, how would you mourn that?
Hugely massive. It would be like the death of a loved one, but on a major scale.
So, just how many cameras have you had access to over the years?
So when we started the documentary on leopards, it was self-funded because we didn't want to be restricted by some broadcaster. We wanted to tell the story warts and all. We didn't want to have, you can't say this, you need to do that, we want you to feature. So we didn't want to be restricted, so we self-funded it. And we didn't realize how big the story was, how much it would cost, etc. Eventually, we blew all our capital and we were in need. And we approached Canon because at that stage, the 5D Mark II was launched. And it was a stills camera that was filming video with photographic glass. Photographic glass is so much prettier than video glass, like much, much prettier. So the videos were just stunning. So we said to Canon, look, we're doing this documentary, we're covering this topic. Can you sponsor us something? And they then partnered with Digital Experience and Fourways, and they sponsored us a 7D body with a lens. And this was just amazing for us. And we used that camera to document a project for Nike, in 2010, when we had the World Cup out here, Soccer World Cup. And from the revenue generated from that project, we bought another 7D and then a 70 to 200 lens, which is a very, very nice lens. And we used those to film with. And at that time, the guys didn't know how to film with what was basically a stills camera, a DSLR. So there was an annual thing called the Photo and Film Fair, and Canon said, can you guys do presentations on our behalf of how to actually film with this new format that no one had actually filmed with before? We said, no problem. So we showed the guys how to do video with a stills camera, and the guys who were coming in from video, how to take stills with it as well. So we gave a cross-pollination course, and this was just so bee's knees for Canon that they asked us then to do a roadshow with them, going around from Cape Town, Durban, Joburg, and we then gave these courses because it was a whole new thing on guys how to do this. So we built up this relationship with Canon where we became, so you're not a brand ambassador, but they call us evangelists. So when they get a new body and a new camera, we get it, we test it, and then we give a review. So we'll give a review on the new, brand new pro body, brand new 600mm lens, whatever the things are. And because of the conservation work that we do pro bono conservation work. They said, look, we need that for our CSI. You guys can have access to gear if it fits, the bill. And so, yeah, we could have access to some of their best gear. We just did a shoot now for a reserve that actually raises cheetah that are now staggeringly endangered. And they gave us a lens called a 50 to 1000 cine lens. And when that lens launched, it was worth 2.5 million rand. And the brand new C400 Pro Cinema video body that coupled onto that for a week to use to film for this project. So this ties in with their support of conservation, and it's an exceedingly good partnership. But above all, the brand for us represents who we are as people. The way that their printers and everything are becoming much, 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 much more eco-friendly. The research and development, the tie-ins with communities, it fills our look and feel of who we want to be as a company down to the ground. So that's why we love the brand. It's not just the cameras are magnificent. It's not just the lenses are magnificent. It's them as a brand tie in completely with our ethos of conservation and doing better for the planet. So it's a good partnership, good fit.
So you talked about this conservation stuff. Now that's the Greater Kyalami Conservancy.
Yeah, that's right. Gecko, yeah.
And you're vice chairman of that. And that's where you take people on tours and walks and there'll be links for all the things that we discussed when this is published. People want to support that, buy calendars or have a look at the work that you've got on your website. So talk to me about the business. doing business with your brother and sister,
Yes, yeah.
and they obviously we've spoken a little bit already about what it is that you do. It's called Perfect Directions, and I was looking at some of the work that you've done. Obviously, there's lots of stuff with wildlife, but you also do some really cool stuff with corporates, and you did a very cool one with Porsche. What was that one about?
Yeah, so we photography and video. You have to be able to produce both nowadays. There's a requirement of it. And people say, so what is your genre? What do you do? And I say it's prostitution, man. If you pay me, I'll do it. So the funny thing we don't do is weddings, but we had one of our corporate clients. He was getting married, and they said, look, can you do it? It was last minute, and we said, shit, fine, all right, okay, fine, we'll do it, because weddings are the most problematic arsehole clients you'll ever come across. So we decided to never do weddings, but we do basically everything else.
Nightmare stories online.
So one of our key anchor clients is AfriSam. They're the concrete manufacturers, cement and concrete. And so we do a lot of construction. We do a lot of roads and development. My brother's now tied in with CivilCon and a couple of other of the engineering guys and that sort of stuff, which is great. We absolutely, my brother and I, we love engineering. We love that side of thing, which ties in very well. Now the Porsche tie-in, when I live right next to Kyalami racetrack, so when they did the changeover from the old, when Toby Fenter bought Porsche and he was going to then change the shape of it and redo it and refurbish it, we approached them and said, look, we'll document the change for free. We just like to have a bit of a leg in when the thing's up. So we documented the change when they changed the track and built the new exhibition center. We documented all of that stuff. So when they did there was the launch of the new 911. They have the guys from Stuttgart come out and they have their photo and video team, but they needed some South African support. So my brother worked on the video, I worked on the stills, my sister worked in the production, and we then shot material for the launch of this 911, and that was working with internationals and all that. That was really, really a great time. And they had this project that they wanted to do. Basically, they've got not quite vintage Porsches, but pre-loved Porsches, older Porsches, and that's part of their business model as well. And we then created a video for that, which was a huge passion project for one of the dealers down in Cape Town. And we shot that, which was really cool. And then they launched something called Exclusive Manufacture, which is where very, very limited number Porsches come out with carbon fiber and stitching and like really, really fantastic stuff. And we said, okay, cool. We'll do this thing for you and we'll make it the shit. So they needed to feature the Porsche in the best places in Cape Town. So we got our hire car and we drove to every single site at every single time of the day that we were going to do it. It was up on Signal Hill. It was down in Table View at Toby Fenter's wine farm in, geez, now I've forgotten where it is, but he's got a wine farm there. And we went and did all of these shots and at Pitsunt and all that. And they said, okay, cool, that's going to work for us. So then we had this 911, which had never really been on the road. It was always on the back of a truck. We'd get it to Signal Hill, take it off the back of the truck. It's serial number 000. It's one of, I think there was going to be 300 or 500 or whatever, but this was 000. And so we could photograph it in the positions and did some beautiful, beautiful work simply because the weather was so gorgeous. And then took it to Uvumero, which is his wine farm, and photographed it there and filmed it. And it was just created some astonishing media. So that was a really great project for us, was being able to have this car where all of these photos that we took were then part of the global marketing for this brand, Exclusive Manufacture. So that was a great shoe-in for us. So that was a very nice project to be a part of.
Now, I know that things have picked up a bit, but talk to me about the downsides of being in business for yourselves. And COVID in particular was a challenging time.
So for us as photographers and video, we weren't, so only what they called essential services could actually do business during that time. If you manufactured food or whatever it was that needed to be manufactured, you could do that. And marketing wasn't seen as essential. And the thing that they also cut back was one of our key clients being AfriSam, they cut back on infrastructure. And so the building industry was actually closed down. So for us, we had 4 months where we had no income at all. I had to go back to my graphic design days and actually do graphic design to try and earn income. And I had a good mate actually like help me out with some bucks to actually get through the hardest hurdle, which was really, really appreciated and respected. So that was about the toughest time, man. We pared back, cut down on all the things that were insured. We cut down on every part of our business that could be pared back, which was already quite stark. Man, we pared back to bare bones, and man, limped through that period, and just slowly, people started to get business going back again, and we've pretty much, I mean, almost fully financially recovered out of that, but it was a staggeringly difficult time. We used to film the largest concerts that would be in South Africa with South African artists. That was our big bread and butter. We were specialists in that. We would all the projects that we would do would win SAMAs for Best Live and all that sort of a thing, because of the producer that we had that would hire us and put it together. And that was our big money spinner. And we haven't done a single concert since then. So that's like, we had to change our entire business model to actually accommodate this, which was tough. And so a lot of guys in my biz, they closed shop. We had a couple of suicides. We had a couple of guys just didn't make it through. It was on my industry, because one of the areas that people pare back first in a budget is marketing.
Which is counterintuitive. All the studies say you should do the other.
You should do the other, but try and convince that to people. So it was brutal, and yeah, that was a big hit for us. I loved it as an individual. I didn't have to go to meetings and meet people, and yeah. So I enjoyed
The crime aspect as well.
I enjoyed them out. I really enjoyed just doing projects at home. So that was great. But yeah, financially for us as a business, it was brutal.
Now, I'm familiar with some of the people that you've been business with, but has St. John's enabled some of those relationships, and enabled some of those projects?
Yeah.
Being part of that old Jahanian network, because I know I know, Graham Wallington started Wild Earth, and Andre Corbett Brunt is now chairman of that. Then you've got Campbell Scott, Giles, a dearly departed friend. You've done work with him and his sister Gabby. Has that been a strong benefit or incidental?
So yeah, so as you mentioned, Giles, sadly, he's no longer with us. We met one day. He had a brand company, and he said, "Look, we've got this project. I think you guys could actually do it." And we did the project. It was obviously, worked very well. And then we did future projects. Sadly, he did pass. So some of the projects that he actually started, he never saw us finish. And then his sister Gabby, so went to Rodine with my sister, she then actually continued the relationship, and that's been a very, very constructive relationship for us. So a lot of our prettier material has been through working with her and her company, Creative Distillery. So that was very conducive for us. There haven't been many more partnerships with it, except for when Graham was running Wild Earth. We needed some footage of leopard cubs for one of the dockies, and they just had some cubs born at Juma. And I said, "Look, Graham, I need some of that footage, buddy." And he said, "No problem, just swing on down." So yeah, swung on down, jumped in the vehicle with the crews. We then went and shot these leopard cubs, and that was some very exclusive access, and that went very well for us. So very, very grateful for that opportunity, because leopard cubs is not something. Leopard on a good day, you're not going to find leopard cubs.
Yeah.
That's no easy find. So that was a real great opportunity, and we were blessed with good weather, and everything worked out for us. Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's part of what the old Jahanian Association, that's the founding purpose, I imagine. And that's what the St. John's College Memories, Facebook, and these podcasts, that's what I'm hoping that can increase, push the needle a little bit to help intergenerational collaboration in business and things. He also spoke about the couple of suicides during COVID, and there was a massive global spike because of isolation, financial issues, etc. You and I have spoken about mental health before. I've struggled, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. I've been clinically depressed with suicidal ideation periods. And I know that's something that's close to your heart as well, because we've worked through a fair bit of patchy periods.
Yeah, look, I mean, I didn't realize that I had a tough childhood until I spoke to some other people, and I kind of then had quite a shock that my childhood had actually been quite unpleasant. The sort of sign of that is when I went to the military. I wasn't, say, a Christian, and so the sergeant major thought I was a Satanist, and so he kind of tried his utmost to break me. And obviously, Anton Van Niekerk, and I'm an English speaker, that was like another sign of the devil. He went out of his way to destroy me as an individual. But I loved soldiering, so I became one of the top soldiers. I was like the fourth fittest. I was best in practical, second best in the written stuff, and he couldn't touch me. I was flawless, and eventually respected me as a soldier, but hated me as what he called a Satanist. And despite this wooden guy who was Bomber Fok from the Angolan War, drilling me, I thought, bro, you've got nothing. You're like get some lessons from my father. You're like a baby. So that kind of put an insight into me just how tough my childhood was, where this oak who's like this groot sergeant major couldn't break me or touch me. And that was a relief. It made me realize how tough and shitty that those childhood experiences were. So anyway, the PTSD thing, along with basically use of childhood and stuff like that, makes you feel sense of worthlessness, and your self-esteem is low, and it just keeps on compounding. And then damaged people. So then I had what they call OCD, so obsessive compulsive disorder. So I would do things that would be inappropriate and harmful and hurt people, and that would then make me hate myself. And so this became this cycle. And eventually I hurt someone who I really, really respected and loved. And that then sent me into about a 3.5, 4 year spiral of chronic depression. I'm a very, very bubbly, vibrant person. I make a lot of jokes and that sort of stuff. So I think it's a lot like I could relate a lot to John Cleese and Robin Williams, the jokester making jokes all of the time. Outwardly to people, you seem jovial and friendly and in high spirits, but on the back end, you're actually in this hugely dark pit. And yeah, that's when the really dark things started to manifest, and the suicidal thoughts and a lot of very, very negative spiral started to set in. I then had a very, very bad car accident in 2008, which created massive anxiety response in me. Eventually, I got a payout from the accident fund for that, and I saw a psychologist and a trauma psychologist, and she helped me then to put everything in little places, things that I could actually manage. This is that issue, that's that issue, that's that issue, that's that issue. This issue we're going to deal with, that issue we're going to deal with, that issue we're going to deal with. And that's what people don't realize is it wasn't the car accident. It wasn't just the PTSD. It wasn't just the traumatic childhood. It wasn't just all of these issues. All of them are one thing, and you can't pick one because they're all interconnected. And that's, I think, a problem that a lot of people make is they think I've got an issue because of one. It's all of it. And you have to unpack and deal with all of it. And you have to unpack the stuff that starts at the beginning. The beginning shaped who you are now. So you can't say, I'm going to deal with this, but I'm going to not deal with that because it's in the past. I don't want to dredge it up. It's painful. What was then, pain is not now. You can't be hurt by that again. You've already been hurt by that. So if you're still being hurt by that, it means that you're having a problematic thing and you're actually self-punishing. So psychology is a beautifully complex thing and yet simple. And if you get enough tools, you can overcome it. And so I did a year of treatment with this person who really helped me to deal with all of it. I went for a brain thing because I had this frontal lobe injury with the car accident. They thought I had frontal lobe syndrome, and so they did brainwave patterning to see what the issue was. It wasn't that at all, and they could actually identify I have something called brain spindles, which is like that's the ADHD. And so in that they realized I didn't actually have any brain patterns for PTSD. So the therapy had helped me to actually overcome the PTSD. The therapy had helped me to deal with trauma. The therapy had helped me to deal with anxiety. So they put me on some medications to help with the spindles and that. And it helped for a while, but it changed my personality. I was super happy because it got rid of the impulse actions. And I was able to at last be the person I always wanted to be. I can't tell you the peace of being the person you've always wanted to be, no longer being dominated by these intrusive thoughts, etc., etc. And it helped me to create a pattern that I could then emulate. So eventually I was taken off the medication because everybody said, we miss the guy that you were. I was like, fuck me, I don't. That guy can fuck off to hell, because while they missed the spontaneous, friendly, kind of outgoing guy, I didn't miss the doers, the guy, the harmed person, harmed people, harm people. I didn't miss that guy at all. But it gave me a mechanism to pattern and repeat that sense and that feeling. So I went off that medication, and those drugs are heavy. It's shit to get on them and it's shit to get off them. So I don't in any way encourage people to do it without caution. They're heavy drugs, and they have a very heavy effect.
Yeah, I'm still on an Umbra.
Yeah. But if it
I
helps you,
think carry on.
yeah, if it helps you, do it. If you can't self-help, so I meditate, I do Tai Chi, I drink green tea, I do all the things that should get rid of anxiety. But because of those things that I'd never had a means to deal with it, I needed medication to help me get through that heavy time. Don't pull down anyone who's on medication. Dismiss medication without having tried everything else, and then say, okay, fine, I've tried everything else. Now I actually need that. Do it. If it doesn't work for you, so be it. Man, I saw a psychiatrist who just didn't know, a psychiatrist didn't know what they were doing, and they would try me on something. You do this awful loading on of the medication. Try the medication. It's shit. You got to then load off the medication. I went through about 4 of these because they misdiagnosed me as having frontal lobe syndrome. And that's why I went and saw this person, actually did brain waving to see what was the actual physical thing that I had. So I highly recommend it. If you've got a person who partners with someone who does the brainwave patterning and you can see your beta theta waves, do that as long as they know what they're doing. Because loading up and loading down on those meds is super shitty. But I'm very grateful I did it, and it got me through a really, really difficult time, and now I've got control.
Hopefully the dozens of people that listen to this or watch this, if they take one message away, and I think we're in agreement, I think going to therapy should be as normal as going to school, going to work. It should be a regular thing. And if anyone watching this or listening to this is having any mental struggles, we have got that buzzing side. Yeah, better. Thanks, mate. The takeaway for me is the first therapist you go and talk to won't be the right one. You've got to feel comfortable. It's like dating almost.
It's more.
Yeah, it is. So don't bottle it up. Don't do the South African male thing. Go and talk to the doctor, and they'll refer you. And then do it speed dating. Go and speak to a couple of different therapists, because when you find the right one, it is really helpful.
I look at it like this. So we're a physical body, an injury. You can't heal it. You can't overcome it. You go and see a therapist. If we go through life and our mental also takes injury, if you can't heal it, go and see a mental physiotherapist, which is a psychologist. So I went through this. I told my team from the reservists, I've got post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm having to stop because of this. So I acknowledged it. I let them know. Now, although they use the word chairman, I call myself a man of responders. We respond to really, really heavy stuff. We respond to, it can be a hijacking in progress, an armed in progress. We respond to car accidents with car and stuff like that. It's really like we got dead bodies to stuff. Strange enough, the worst thing that people respond to it's a thing that really harms us. So whenever we've had a heavy scene, I introduced this when I took over the reins here, is we've had a shooting and there's bodies and there's blood and stuff like that. We've got a psychologist, a trauma psychologist. She sits with us and we do a session and we do a look to see, is there anything still lagging,
Is that
something.
mandatory?
Yeah. I require it. If we've had a heavy scene, the guys have to attend the thing. It's not a choice. So I worked very hard to make mental wellness a an imperative for the guys. So if
It's a
we've had
big part of the role.
it's because it's not a choice enough. Some of the guys then were able to say that suicide, when we did that shooting, it triggered and I realized how much it affected me. We had a guy who, there was a suicide in his apartment thing. He didn't attend to it. He attended, but it caused a trigger in him. And he said, look, I'm stepping back. I can only do roadblocks. I can't do anything that's blooding. It's important for to be able to have, it's not, and I push mental health and well guys and girls, strong, and I'll say we had this incident how, and if we're doing a suicide, I'll be the guy who and does the scene, because I don't want to have an undue burden on it. And it's not because I'm tougher, it's a mechanisms to process and deal with those.
So I was fascinated when we were talking before this episode, and then you sent over some information. I looked at LinkedIn, and I know from history that bits and bobs of what you've done. So I was really intrigued by the fact that I know about the mental health, know about the car accident and the physical ramifications of that. So I was curious why you were still so intimately involved with the police, and then with this community policing organization. And then I read an article in the Citizen where you were quoted as saying the following, and I think this sums it up, and it's really to your credit. So you're talking about asking other people to come and volunteer, and you said the roles ask a lot of a person's free time and can be very challenging. Yet the reward in knowing that one has made one society and community a little safer, assisted the SSPS in their duties, and in being a little more efficient, knowing that just one person's day is better because of the role we play, is a great reward indeed. And I think that's fascinating, but I think it's to your credit, and it's definitely that you've got your thought processes in your environment. You know where you can have an effect, and where you can't. More importantly, is that the have I seen that right?
A major part of my life, which is never seen or spoken about, because I don't have people telling me about their religion, so I don't about mine. But I came across an organization, was home. I attended this organization and I was like, I didn't know I'm for this. So in 1988 in Matric, I found this organization and it completed me. It was a void I didn't realize I had. I didn't realize it. And I follow it's a spiritual, we do meditation and things like that. There's no parallel. It's got, you can liken bits of Buddhism and bits of Eastern and a bit of, things and all sorts of stuff. And through that is coming to know who you are, coming to know your strengths, your weaknesses, and then working on your weaknesses and then building up on your strengths. But a key thing is service. And I don't think people realize how fulfilling service is. So I used to volunteer at the zoo when I was at school, and I'd go and I'd muck out the stables and clean stuff. And it was cool. I loved the zoo. I loved the animals and everything, but doing stuff that contributed felt good. Then doing the police service, best So there's the adrenaline rush. So this is the thing, is there's nothing fucking better than putting on the blue lights and the fucking siren and hammering through the red robots and just chasing down oaks with guns and shit. It's so much fun, and it's just adrenaline, and it's the bee's knees, and that's great. But the best moments ever, making a person's worst time they will ever have in their life better by being sensitive, caring, considerate, cradling them, helping, healing them in that time of need. When they would have just had a guy coming in a form and being blunt and to give them a soft place to let was just so fulfilling. So I do a lot of work in our community. I work with my ward councillor. I work with the different ratepayers associations in the area. We work to get best service delivery a person can, empowering people. So I don't want to do things for people. It's not my job. I'm not paid for it. I do it, not my thing. I like to give people the power to, and if people could find something that's a passion for them. So if you're a passion, it's about wildlife. If you're about wellness, about food, about reach, uplift, and don't believe how making life or the planet or whatever it is better. It's an intrinsic thing within a person, and it's so good for you as an individual. We have a scene, and we a car theft gang, and we've got all these guys, and it's an open and shut thing. It's like, yes, we've taken this problem out of our, or we. I mean, the one thing I'll never forget, there was a car on the side of the road. When my brother and I stopped the van, we get out, we changed the tire for people, and they were too afraid to get out of their car because Johannesburg's so dangerous that they didn't change the tire. They were just sitting there on the side of the road. And all we did was change a tire for them. And they could go on with their day. Given those people is just so good. I got a note from, and I post a lot of pretty pictures just to make people enjoy things. And yeah. And a person said, I don't think you realize how much your pretty pictures have gotten me through the water. And I was dumbfounded. You don't know the effect you have on people until never done doing, keep, and one day you might find out what it means to people. You don't do it for recognition. You don't do it for thanks or whatever like that. You just do it because it's the right thing to do. And then one day somebody will say this thing of, thing changed me and turned me around. And that's all that we can ever hope for, is that we're doing the thing and it impresses on another person, it improves their life and it uplifts them. I've accomplished.
That's amazing, and it's credit to you because I know you. You're extremely humble. You do all this stuff without bragging about it, and it only comes up if I ask what's happened recently. But yeah, I think in later life I've got the same sort of belief system: do more and expect less. I just want to end. I want you to talk a bit more about the Leopard and about the three-part series that you've done, which is going to be released. Where's it going to be released? Where can people see it? Are there any trailers coming out? And tell us a little bit about the topics because they're really interesting.
Yeah, so my brother read an article in 2009 about a guy that was going, and he was saving leopards. And we were like, why are you saving leopards? Go to there. And we didn't realize at the time that there's more leopards outside of protected areas than inside areas. And we then followed this guy, started doing a documentary about him, and we found out how, farmers are shooting leopards, and in the community lands they're shooting stuff. But then I had some questions about the ethics that the guy was about. And I asked him a couple of questions, and that got quite aggressive. And then the more I asked, the more aggressive he got. And then I asked the EWT, Endangered Wildlife Trust, and I said, look, I've got some questions, this guy. And they like, is this on or off? they then sort of told me about some of the practices that he was doing, and I was like, look, we can't share it with that. Ethics and morals are not aligned. We are. So we had to bin, which put us in this massive financial hole. We had filmed all this stuff on the thought of return and self-funded, and we had to bin everything. So I then got in contact with And Beyond, who have these fantastic luxury places, and they were running a project called the Munyawana Project, Pinda, and that was the largest leopard research project in the world, and still is. And we went and filmed the project with the Canon cameras that we got sponsored, etc. And realized that the story and realized the story was just so much bigger than we realized. Because basically, what happens is leopards have, say, this is the size of the reserve, but a leopard's territory is like this. The leopard's territory is outside the reserve and inside the reserve. And as soon as they went outside the reserve, they were then on hunting concerns, and in the community land, they would then be snared and shot and all that sort of stuff. So they didn't understand why their population static, it never grew. And it's because they kept on going outside of the reserves. They then partnered with the people outside the reserves, gave them better ways of crawling their animals, etc., etc., and then the numbers increased. And then we had to farmers better manage in high leopard density areas. So we near all days, which is right up in Popo, and farmers have there's cheetah, there's around them. And, they then have guardian animals, and they do different crawling measures and all sorts of stuff. And then they've got no loss. You can farm with wildlife, which would normally be taking your livestock, and still be successful. But we then had a thing that we needed to tell, which was the population dynamics of leopards. Everyone thinks, oh, you just see a single leopard, and only when they're mating are they together. But there's a whole more complex dynamic about how leopards actually work, how the male and the female interact, how the female will be allowed land within a mom's territory, and all this sort of a thing. So we went up to Namibia, where a woman had done her studies at Londolozi, and then adapted them in Namibia when she went and did work there. And we told that story. So we've got these 3 dockies. The last one just needs to go through the final phase of QC, quality control, and then we're going to approach a broadcaster not a broadcaster, a distributor, to get broadcasters for it. So once that's finalized, then we can say to people, yeah, it's happening. Now you can view it on this, this, and this, and this, and then we be able to show the promos and that sort of a thing. So there's 3 full-length documentaries that we've shot, filmed, edited. Everything's done by us. So we think they're good. We hope everybody else does too. Yeah.
My favorite big cat as well, so I can't wait to watch that.
They're fantastic cats. They literally are the most efficient cats. They never overpopulate. So it's the only cat that you never have to do birth control or anything, because their numbers stay exactly relative to the amount of prey that they have, etc. Yeah.
Interestingly.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. We'll be looking for that, and I will post links for that onto the Facebook group when they become available. I'll also be adding the links for the various organizations. With this, when I publish it, it's been fascinating. I knew a lot, but I didn't know half of your life story and your experiences and your career. Fascinating. It's been an absolute pleasure. Um, yeah, you're doing some incredible things with your work, but also with your volunteering.
Thank you.
Which you've probably touched so many innumerable people who benefited from your passion. Appreciate it. But
Thank you. Thanks very much for the opportunity to share my life that is ordinary for me. Thanks a lot for that.
well, I'm glad you're the first, because it was off with a bang. Cool, mate.
Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it.
Thanks, everybody.